Welcome, beautiful women, to the Sistership Circle Inspiration for the Week. I am so excited to be here with you, and I am Tanya Lynn, the founder of Sistership Circle and the founder of Tribal Truth. And I today am just so thrilled to start these inspirations. This is week one of the Sistership Circle, and the topic is all on love and embodying the feminine. And I feel like this is such a great way for us to start our sistership circles and for you to hear from an embodied leader, a woman who really walks the walk. And so we're going to have a discussion today, and you get to tune in and feel the inspiration and really start to go a little bit deeper. This is about how can you go deeper into this topic and apply it to your life. And so today I am interviewing or having a conversation really with Chamelli Ardagh, who is the founder of Awakening Women Institute. And I was introduced, I want to say a couple years ago, to one of her books on creating circles. And, you know, I had been creating circles myself and just started following her and absolutely loved the way that she embodied the feminine. And so when I thought of who's the one person who I would be absolutely blessed to interview on this topic, it was her. And so I'm so glad that she said yes and that we all get to be inspired by her today. So welcome, Chamelli. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. You're so kind introduction.
Yeah. Well, I would love to start by having some context of who you are and have you introduce yourself and what you do in the world and really a little bit about your journey so that women have a context of where you're coming from and so they can feel related to you.
Yes, yes. I was born in Norway, and Norway is one of the most affluent countries in the world, where women very early on in the 60s, 70s adopted this new, this revolution of women's liberation. The women have come very far there in terms of equal rights, power of influence. So I grew up in this atmosphere, and one should think that growing up with women achieving so many, benefits and changes in society, one should think that I grew up with, surrounded by ecstatic women, but that was not the case. I grew up among relationship, marriages, families falling apart. There was no new model of how to be together out of this new paradigm. To be in relationship and intimacy was not easy. The old paradigm didn't work. They didn't have the new one yet. And I also grew up among women that was basically exhausted. And I very early on, I felt there must be something more than this, and I went on to the spiritual path, the spiritual search, and the kind of promise in so many of the spiritual traditions that I was studying. I went to India every year, meditating, meeting with wonderful teachers. But the whole map that I was following was some kind of a promise that one day I would reach a state of perfection where I wouldn't have to deal with all the mess that I was dealing with within me. So that sounded very attractive to me as kind of a route out of here. So I was very ambitious on this spiritual path, shaved my head, kind of went for it full on. And through these practices, I had awakenings. I had a realization of myself bigger than the soap opera My Little Story, which was an amazing lesson. But I still had no clue how to be a woman. I had no maps or tools for how to deal with all of the things that I was dealing with as a Western modern woman. My relationship was still a complete mess. It was kind of a schism between my inner realization and how I actually lived, because I didn't have the bridge between the two. And this was what led me to the women's circle, because I realized that the paths that I've been following had, all of the religious traditions were created by men, and they were created maybe for men, and maybe for men in monasteries. So although there are beautiful tools on the inside, they didn't address actually the how we can embody awakening through a woman's body. And this was that's where I embarked into this exploration together with women, where we are exploring. We are pioneers, because there's not so many maps showing us how to embody awake consciousness through the feminine, and we have to kind of trust. We have to stand on the edge of evolution and trust our own wisdom, instead of all the times referring to the male teacher or to the father and try to get affirmation and try to please and get approval. Because in my view, this edge we are at now, we have to be the teachers. We are the ones that are going to teach this step. Not so that the feminine is going to take over, but so that we can restore a kind of balance and access all of our resources, not only this imbalance paradigm that we live in right now. So that led me to this incredible path, this incredible practice that I've been involved with now for maybe. It's so hard to remember numbers, but maybe 11 years, 12 years, something like that. And so I travel and practice with women. We meet online. By now, it's thousands of women in this circle, which is kind of a timeless circle. It feels like I have been given the hat of guiding a specific field. And when women come to the circle, they go like, I recognize this. I remember that. It's like they find their seat again in this circle. So I'm just incredible. Every day it's a new discovery. It's new. It's constantly evolving, constantly blossoming, this practice.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that about the timelessness of circle. Mm-hmm. And this has been something that it seems to be a theme in a lot of conversations that I have. And the same thing where literally when a group of women start in circle, they feel like there's a soul family, like there's the soul connection of, not only have I been here before, but I've done this with you before, and there's just something so magical about that, and how we have, as women, been gathering, and before the witch burning, there was women gathering together in circle, and I had this amazing conversation with the author of, I'm totally blanking on her name, the author of The Heroine's Journey, Maureen. And it was just, I had this epiphany as I was talking to her. I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing the same thing as you were doing 20, 30 years ago. And it was, and I really tapped into that power of the circle and women coming together to initiate the feminine and to embody it and to really be in this conversation of what does it really mean to be a woman? And what can we celebrate about that and have that come alive? So that I feel like that's exactly what you were just speaking into, and the power of that sisterhood and bringing it back. Like I feel like so much of the work is about bringing that back and the remembrance, right? It's always been there, and so we're just tapping into the lineage.
Yeah. Yeah. to me, as a leader of circles, my experience is that the circle is alive. It's an alive archetype in itself, and contains accumulated wisdom from the trials and errors, from the fruit of the practice of so many women. Like you mentioned, women have always found a way to gather together. So when we take our seat in the circle, we don't start from scratch. We are supported by the accumulated Shakti, the energy that is there. And as a leader of the circle, the circle is my guru. It is my teacher, and that it is the circle that informs our practices and the teachings. And it's an incredible dance.
So one of the things that for me has really come alive, and I know that this is something that is alive for you as well, but through my experience of being in circle, some archetypes have started to come to my attention. One of the big ones for me was the High Priestess, and specifically Isis. And she came to me, I would say, when I started to do some masculine feminine work. I created an event called Honoring the Masculine, where men got to come into the women's circle back in February 2013, and just this was like, oh wow, what is this High Priestess? And I started to define her for myself, and then I started to do some research, and it was like, oh yeah, I know her. And that, you know, that same thing with the timelessness of circle. It was like tapping into these archetypes and these goddesses. And I know that this is part of your work and something I've seen, just the information that you're putting out. So I'm wondering if you can share with us one of these archetypes or one of these goddesses that's really spoken to you, and tell us a little bit about her, and what we can learn from her.
I have to choose.
Tell me.
I'm going to be slapped by the other ones. I have a very, my path is very devotional path. Is very big part of my practice is devotion. I have a very intimate relationship with the goddess, and the one that has really been my big mama goddess is Durga, and she's a tremendous goddess of feminine leadership. She embodies a sense of feminine empowerment that perhaps that we somehow have forgotten, or our attempts to become empowered, we are actually hindering this source of power that Durga points to. And Durga, she's a warrior goddess, but she is also a mother goddess. And we have many goddesses that are very fierce and like the Kalis, or the kind of the more destructive goddesses. And Durga is one of them, but she has this tremendous grace. She has an ease to her, the way she performs her dharma, her duty, her specific assignment. And it is her ease that is one of the Shakti keys in her mythology. The Shakti keys are kind of, are portals of power or awakening for us. Shakti is a word we use for creative energy. And this Shakti key of ease and relaxation has all to do with embodiment, because there is a power when we deeply connect with what we fully love, what feels important to us. What is it that really matters? When we are asking those questions and look back inside to where those points to, we are accessing one of the most powerful Shaktis in the universe, because it is that place in you that listens or hears the call of what you are here to do. That place in you is an open door into uh, into a dance that whole of existence is participating in. We are all kind of yearning to be fully us. You know, the flower, the pink flower wants to be a fully pink flower. And, you know, the planet wants to move in a certain patterns. And the whole universe is dancing in this kind of, let me fill the thread of me fully. So when we, as women, hears that call, it is easy for us to move quickly away from where the energy is. And we hear the call, and then we immediately go to our mental realm, and we begin to think about how. And we begin to think about, oh, who am I to do this? Or am I going to be good enough? And then when we are here, we are not in the Shakti anymore. The Shakti, the energy you need to manifest your dreams, is in the longing itself, is in the call itself. And that is a tremendous vulnerable place to be, because that's where you start to, you know, you shake a little bit, your heart is beating fast, it matters to you. You're out of that, you're not in this kind of casual, yeah, I can go either way. It's this, you know, when I do this work, it's just it matters so much to me. I love this work so much. And it's vulnerable to stay and to love somebody, something so much, because, you know, people can judge you, people can, you know, you are too much, too dramatic, but that's the vulnerability that is asked for us. It's like, oh, and that's where we are in the power. So Durga Ma, she shows us, she says, in your vulnerability is your power. Kali says, in your vulnerability is your greatness, not in your pretend powers. Like, oh, I feel so insecure, so now I have to build up this kind of shield of self-esteem, and I'm gonna, you know, become something else one day if I'm just heal all my wounds and do enough meditation, and then I'm going to fully show up. No, Durga says, no. All of that is moving you away from that. She says, you know, stay right here, stay in that where it feels a little risky, where you have to show up even with your insecurity, because your love is so strong, and you know that you have something to contribute to it. And then you stay there with the trembling legs and the dry mouth, and, but you give that kind of medicine of alive shock with alive presence into the world. And that's what we want. We don't want the plastic. It's too much plastic and kind of strategies of how to do things perfectly. We are nauseated by it. That's not what the world needs. You know, we need the nectar, the aliveness of you. And that's a risk, because you have to risk to trust that you are not a mistake, that you, if you can stay really close to you, that's where that heals the world. So Durga, she's just amazing. She rides on a tiger. She has this hot, furry animal between her legs, and she her heart is open, she's relaxed, and she is so rooted in what she loves, and it is from the love she draws her power. So she shows us just this relaxed power. Yeah. And then it's the power of the whole universe.
I'm totally resonating with this, and you're getting so passionate and excited, and I'm like, oh my God, yes, that's me too. Oh, I love it, because that's how I feel about the work, is I feel that deep soul connection, and that, and I'm so surprised that I haven't really, I've heard of Durga, but I've never connected with her, and I'm like, how could I not have connected with this goddess yet? Like, she is the embodiment of everything that I'm personally going through, and what you were speaking of she's a warrioress, and I identify so much with that, as well as the mother, and I'm actually 26 weeks pregnant right now. Talk about a journey. I mean, stepping into motherhood, it's like I feel like I've stepped into a room behind closed doors. It's just fascinating, this pregnancy, what it's been opening up in terms of the embodiment of the feminine. But you were, and I don't want to kind of digress over there. What I really wanted to.
Let's.
Okay, in a second. But let me have my comment first. My comment was that this has been such a, what you just spoke into, of feeling that calling, and I feel it so much in circle, and then how immediately women, and I've been seeing this pattern over and over again the last couple of weeks and conversations I've been having, and literally watching as women go right up into their head, and I'm like, no, don't go there. And just how you said that, like, the world needs us women to take that courageous action in trusting the calling. And we don't have to have it figured out. We don't have to know the answers. We don't have to know the how. That will all be revealed. Like, that is the path of the feminine. It all is revealed when we just say yes to the calling. So thank you for speaking into that, because it's what I literally, I mean, it's the conversation that's been so alive for women, that fear and the contraction and the getting in the heads, and it's like, that's not what you want. You're calling that your deepest desire, that has nothing to do with your head. So thank you for speaking into that. Okay, so you want to go into the pregnancy?
No, I just wanted to mention that there is, in these Hindu goddesses, there are like 360,000 of them. So we have a goddess for everything, and they also are kind of the same goddess shifting form. So an aspect of Durga is when she is the mother, and she is Parvati. She's the wife of Shiva, and she is the mother of Ganesh and Skanda. She has two. And Parvati, Durga in the Parvati form, she mirrors to us also that kind of bridge between a schism that so many of us feel, and that is that we think we have to either go for family or go for our dharma and our spiritual path.
Yes.
And so if I'm going for my spiritual path, I have to sacrifice my family, or if I go for the family, I have to sacrifice my yoga or my spiritual path. And Parvati, she is the one showing us how that goes together. She's an amazing yogini. She's a spiritual practitioner. She's a the story goes that she from a very young age, she really wanted to marry Shiva, and Shiva was in celibate. He's one of the gods who just sits and meditates in the Himalayas, not interested in relationship at all. And Parvati really wants him. And what she finds out is that she has to go just as deep in her own practice, in her own self-exploration. And in there, she's going to meet him. It's not to reach out and give up her own that she's going to meet him. Then he's not even going to notice her. And of course, this is an image of aspects within ourselves. Shiva is that presence, that peaceful spaciousness that we long for. And Parvati is Shakti. She's all the feelings, all the juice, all the colors. And she finds Shiva when she goes fully into herself. And that's where he notices her, and they form this beautiful family. And she's just incredible. Also, again, a Shakti key for us.
Yeah, that was a big fear for me, and why I thought a couple years ago that I didn't want to become a mother. And I really thought that I would, because what I watched it from my mother, where she let go of her career to have me and be a full-time mother, and I looked down on that for a long time. So I had to come to terms, and there was some forgiveness and healing. And then I made a declaration in June 2013 that yes, I can have both, and yes, I want to be a mother. And then a year later, I got pregnant, and it feels so miraculous, and it feels so much in alignment with my path.
Mm.
And a lot of women have been coming to me saying, how is that working out for you as a businesswoman and an entrepreneur and a woman on purpose? Is that a fear for you that that'll all be gone when you have the baby? And so there's a lot of women I'm seeing actually model this for me and for others, that no, we can merge the two. We can have both, and that it's all one and the same in a way. And I know things will shift for me, obviously becoming a mother and having a little one to care for, but I see very much how it all fits together, and that there is no separation. So it's really powerful, and I'm glad that you just mentioned that about poverty, about her being that model.
Yeah, and it's going to bring so much new things into your teachings and into your offerings.
Already, and I feel like she's already teaching me. She's already my teacher. And we actually just found out on Wednesday that it's a girl, and it just was like, of course it's a girl. It makes so much sense of all the feminine work that I'm doing. And when she entered the screenplay, you know, it's like she's entering now at this place where I birthed my book this year, and you know, sistership circles are now, you know, alive in the world in a bigger way. So it's like, of course it's a she, and of course she came in now, and it's just, she's teaching me so much too around really filling my cup, really listening, practicing more discernment, and just really taking care of myself. And it feels even more of the embodiment of the feminine. It's really powerful.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. So I have a question.
Just hang on for 1 second, because I see that my battery is going off, so I'm just going to get a cord.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back. I forgot to think of that.
So how did you learn about these goddesses? Where did you, I mean, I know that you've traveled to India. Are these a lot of stories that are passed on word of mouth, or is it something that you read and studied? I'm curious about that.
Yes, it is both. I am what I call like a Sanskrit nerd. I like to study, and I can get very lost into very esoteric labyrinths. So it is a mix of studying, and also in the Shakti lineage that I'm practicing in, these stories, they were transmitted orally, so they have been told, and there's a beautiful part of the transmission that happens that I find really beautiful, and that is that I can tell you a story, for example, about Durga, and then it lands in you, in your heart, it lands in the heart of so many of the other women in the circle listening, and it is where it is landing in each one of us that the truth reveals itself. And then, you know, it's a little paradoxical, because what we are used to think is that, oh yeah, but people can interpret it so many different ways. It is better to just write it down, because then everybody can see it one way. But the very fact that we all are interpreted different ways is the teaching. It's that where it lands in you, and it unfolds and it integrates in you and into your practice. That's where the teaching stays true, because this is an alive and breathing lineage that keeps evolving through all of the women that it touches. So a lot of these teachings, they appear out of practice. They appear, and I mentioned that the circle is my teacher, and a lot of these practices arise out of the field. You know, it's a little magical. You know, in the Buddhist tradition, they say that there's a lot of the teachings that were written down or downloaded by teachers many hundred years, thousand years ago, but it was not the right time. So they stored the teachings in the leaves in the trees, in the glitter on the water, in the wind. They stored the teachings, and then people could come and download it later on when the time was right. And what my experience in the women's circle now is that each time we practice, in fact, tonight we start the women's leadership training here, like the women's temple group leadership training. And each time we gather, there are new practices and layers of these teachings that reveals themselves to us. So, and this is available to all of us. Mm. And of course, there are written down stories about the goddesses. There are some beautiful books. Actually, one book that I can recommend that was written just 1 year ago is by Sally Kempton. And the book is Awakening Shakti. And it's that book that we were waiting for, because before that book, there were so many books that was too academic, too esoteric, or too light. And this one is really beautiful. It's the Goddess Stories and Practices. It's gorgeous book. So I highly recommend that.
Thank you. I'm glad that you recommended that. I've heard of that book, and now having that recommendation, I definitely want to check it out. So thank you for that resource. And one thing that I found for myself in this conversation of spirituality is this idea of ascension. And what I found is through the last few years for myself, I found that actually it feels like more of a descent, a descension into the feminine. And so I've related that of like, for me, embodying the feminine is about being in my body. It's actually about going into lower chakras, not necessarily leaving my body and really connecting with the earth. And for me, that descent also was what I call my dark night of the soul. And where there was a lot of this act of surrender, of letting go of a lot of how I operated, which was a lot of masculine qualities and making it and being in my head and these type of things. That process of surrendering and letting go was very painful for me. And I'm wondering if you had a similar experience during your journey. You know, and I love that, you know, Durga is all about vulnerability, and that's been a big thing for me, is that act of surrender was very vulnerable. And allowing myself to feel all of those feelings was very vulnerable. So I'm wondering if you had an experience like that in your life, if that was part of your path of the embodiment of the feminine.
For me, I had the dark night of the soul early on. I had like very dark, you know, very kind of traumatic childhoods, and my teenage years were very much trying to get out of here, you know, using all the drugs and you know, exploring darkness as much as I possibly could. And very early on, you know, in my early 20s, I started therapy. You know, I went to India when I was 20 years old, first time, and then since then I went almost every year. And I realized that so much of what I had been searching was found within me instead of out, you know, trying to leave myself. But then later, when I met the feminine practices, there was definitely a death of a lot of identities, particularly spiritual identities. There was a lot of it's almost like reprogramming because I've been so indoctrinated with models that is, you know, insist on rejecting the feminine. You know, most of the paths and the models we have in spirituality is created out of the fear or a rejection of the feminine. So for me as a feminine practitioner, it was a constant fight with my own nature. You know, all of the things that I was experiencing as sacred somehow told me that that was things I should overcome. I should eventually, when I was spiritually mature, I will be beyond that. So for me, when I met the goddesses, it was like looking into the mirror, and I looked into the mirror and I saw, you know, Kali full of rage. I saw, you know, Inanna full of lust. You know, she's like, oh, fill me, you know, and you have Durga, and you have Aphrodite, it is so central. So I could recognize and reclaim parts of me that I had been told was not holy, and I could see this all of this are embodiments of awake consciousness, just in different forms. You know, Buddha, he's a beautiful embodiment of awake consciousness, but he's only one aspect, one flavor, and it is sad if all the women tries to be like him, and we amputate such a big part of our resources. So, and then I have been through, you know, many kind of shifts, wake-up calls in my life that has crystallized even more my commitment and why I'm here and what matters to me. Sometimes when things are falling apart, that's when we are really left with, you know, what is really important. And it can be scary when things fall apart, but it is also an open window to freedom. Like you mentioned Isis, you know, she's an aspect of a goddess called Inanna, who is one of the oldest, you know, goddesses we know of. She was in the Middle East, in Sumer. And Inanna, the story of Inanna, is similar to what you described. Is that she's a goddess. She is the daughter of the sky gods. So she knows her world. She's doing things great. She's like, you know, the queen of the heaven, queen of the earth. And then she gets the calling. She just knows that there are part of her power and her wisdom that she hasn't explored. And she moves down into the underworld to meet her dark sister in the underworld. And on her way down, she goes through 7 gates, and on each gate she has to sacrifice her goddess throne, her clothes. She has to sacrifice all the identities that she has held on to. And she's stark naked when she meets her dark sister. She's offered everything. And that's where the dark sister actually kills her. but it's a complete you know, meltdown. It's a complete dissolving of all the rigid identities. Now the story goes that she comes back to life and she walks up to the surface again. And she's still a goddess. She takes on her crown again, but she has seen herself, who she is outside the identities. So she's no longer so naive, and she's accessing this kind of deep, dark power within her that is, you know, changing the way she moves in the world. The descent of it.
Yeah.
Very
I was going to say that I think you really, I want to just point out a key piece, and that is all the different aspects like when you were talking about the God having this one dimension, this one aspect, but then you look at these thousands of goddesses and all the different aspects that they represent about the feminine, and this piece around all the identities that you had, you know, it was like you were stripping off and really evaluating and looking at all these things that we had learned. You know, you had learned all these different models and paradigms and identities, and so it's like this stripping that off and then coming to this new realization of the feminine that I think is kind of underneath all of that. So it's like a stripping down process. But that we are, as women, as the feminine, it's all these different aspects. It's not just one.
Mm.
We play the full range. That's what's so beautiful, is these goddesses, you know, you have the rage of Kali, and then, you know, it's like you just have the whole spectrum, and that we as women can play that, and we can feel all of it. And that's what's so wonderful, I think, about being a woman and being in the feminine.
Yeah, yeah, yes, and it is, you know, in the Shakti tradition, we have the model of Shiva Shakti, and Shiva is formless spirit. Shakti is how spirit takes form, and they are not two; they are one. So we have been taught that spirit is found somewhere else, like outside matter, that there are two different things. And in the embodiment practices, we are really investigating that belief, if it is true. Can we find the red dotted line from where spirit ends and the matter begins? And I've been trying, and I haven't found it yet. So the embodied spirituality path is it's a more challenging path, because, you know, when we close our eyes in meditation and we ascend with our consciousness, we can find that peace and we can find that spaciousness and universal love. But then we open our eyes again and we begin to relate, and then it feels as if we lost it. Oh, I'm so enlightened. And then the husband says something irritating, and then we're not so enlightened anymore. You know, like there's a sense of two. There's a dualism there. So, oh, I can have the peace, but the world can just shut up and be quiet. But in our path, you know, the embodied path, we are exploring. We are exploring Shakti. We are the form, the body feelings are our portals into Shiva, into that peacefulness, the same peacefulness that we access in meditation. But when we access it in the midst of feelings, in the midst of life, we haven't had to split off parts of ourselves in the process. You know, for me, the return of the goddess into our spirituality is the return of wholeness. We no longer have to split off parts of ourselves in order to be free, because that is a very conditioned freedom. Now she wants us to really, you know, really investigate to see all of this. What is it made of? It's made of magic. It's made of mystery. All of this is spirit in form, Shakti.
Hmm.
You know, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You continue.
There is a myth, another myth that comes to me that is from the beginning of our civilization, our Western culture. It's from the Greek mythology, where it's a story from the very beginning of the universe, where Gaia, Mother Earth, is spinning in an empty universe, and Uranus, who is the sky, he's so attracted to Gaia. He just really, really wants her. So he lays himself around her. So he covers her completely, and he makes love to her, and makes love to her, and makes love to her. So this is a time where the heaven and earth are one. Just this kind of infinite lovemaking. And out of this lovemaking, all the creatures in the world are born. So all the people, the plants, the animals, everything is born out of their lovemaking. But not all of the children are pretty children. They also give birth to monsters and kind of ugly creatures. And when Uranus, Father Sky, sees the ugly children, he gets so ashamed. It doesn't really fit with the image he wants to keep to the world. So he hides them down into the underworld, inside the Gaia. And then he kind of just pretend that they're not there. And this goes on and on. He just keeps hiding the ugly ones until Gaia finds out what he does. And she gets so angry. She gets so pissed off. She's like, how can you do this? These are my children. Pretty children, ugly children, they're all my children. I don't see any difference. How can you do this? And then she runs to one of her sons to ask for help. And Kronos, one of her sons, whose name means time, comes with his dagger. And he cuts off the penis of Uranus. And Uranus, in deep pain, just flees, escapes far, 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 far up above, where he's been ever since, just as far away as he can. And the penis is thrown into the sea, and that's the beginning of another story. But the beauty of this myth is that I think we all have Uranus internalized within us. It's kind of lofty identity of who we want to be in the world, like who I want to be. And then we measure everything we experience through the filter of who I want to be. And things that doesn't fit, we push away. And it gets pushed away into the underworld. But of course it doesn't go away. It just creates this schism, this split. It's what I call the disease of disembodiment, where we then begin to live in this abstract idea of me, which is kind of a rigid, solid sense of me, in an otherwise fluid universe. And this me is created out of resisting certain experiences. Like we don't want to feel that, so then I have to kind of hold on to this rigidness over here. So this is the split. This is what the beginning of the Western civilization, where the heaven and earth got split off as two different things. And we are experiencing this within ourselves.
Yeah, and I think I always find that interesting, this oneness and this dualism and this feeling of that connection and we're all one, but also feeling that sense of separation. And I think this is something that is just part of the human condition, and both, it feels like both exist. It's something hard, I think, for us to wrap our heads around, but really to notice and to understand that there is, there is both. Like there is actually this feeling of separation sometimes, and also this feeling of oneness. And again, it's like it's playing the full range. It's the light and the dark, the anger and the happiness. It's we can feel all of it, and not to resist it.
Yes.
So just seeing that we're kind of wrapping up here, and in closing today, is there anything that you are feeling called to share? Any wisdom with the women in the circle as we're closing our circle?
I want to share. I just want to again encourage you to trust the calling, to trust the call you have heard and acted upon, and to not take it for granted, because we live in an infinite universe, and maybe you have lived many lifetimes, and so many people living this lifetime have just even can only focus on the next meal, or are trapped in other ways, and just that we in this lifetime have heard a call to awaken and blossom into our wisdom and find ways to embody it. That's a miracle in itself. That call is the goddess. That call is Shakti. It's a very intimate, direct experience of what we mean by the word God, a goddess. So don't underestimate it. Don't take it for granted. Don't belittle it. Just stand tall in it. It's a big deal.
Mm. I love that. Trust. One thing to take away from this call is trust. Well, thank you so much. And so if you're listening and watching today and you want to learn more about Chamelli and her work, you can go to awakeningwomen.com, correct? Yeah. And next week will be the next topic is on self-acceptance and opening your heart to receive. And so just tune in. You can continue to be part of these conversations and get your inspiration next week. And you can find us at sistershipcircle.com if you want to join one of our circles or just continue to stay inspired. So thank you, ladies. Thank you, Chamelli, so much for your beauty, your grace, your courage, your wisdom. Thank you for being a model for us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Bye, everyone.